ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Keep pushing, Eagles. The controversial quarterback sneak known as the tush push or brotherly shove survived an NFL owner's vote yesterday to ban it. We'll talk more about that on the Friday News Roundup tomorrow. But today, we're having a different conversation about sports. It's about race and representation in sports talk radio. CityCast Philly sports contributor O.J. Spivey joins me to talk about his recent column in the Philadelphia Tribune. He argues unless you're a former athlete, Black professionals have a harder time getting work into the influential world of Philly sports talk radio. It's Thursday, May 22nd. I'm Trinae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. OJ, you recently wrote a column in the Philadelphia Tribune, and you say this: sports talk radio is one of the most popular mediums in American society, but Blacks need not to apply. That is, if you happen not to be a former professional athlete. OJ, tell me, what inspired you to write this piece?
Well, it's been something that's on my mind for a while, Trinae, but what's really sparked it was last month, Tyrone Johnson, who was a longtime radio host at 97.5 The Fanatic here in Philadelphia, he was let go of the station, and that prompted me to write the column. Again, it's just something that's been on my mind for a while, but I've also known several other personalities who've tried to get into sports radio to no avail. And
here in Philadelphia.
Here in Philadelphia, right. I mean, other cities as well, but primarily here in Philadelphia, where it's been, a most prominent issue. And I had to say something about it, and it just seems like if you're not a former player who suited up with the Eagles or a former athlete, you can't get any airtime. So I thought it was just time that we talked about it and, how that needs to change.
But there's other Black sports radio personalities on air, right?
Well, they're not full time. When you talk about radio as a whole, whether it's general talk radio or, music stations, there are your primetime slots. You're talking about morning drive, middays, afternoon drives. So those are the three most popular time slots in radio. And when you don't have hosts who represent the city, who don't represent the population, who don't represent the athletes that these radio stations cover, then you'll have an imbalance there. So, for one to find a Black host, you have to go on the weekends, you have to go on late nights, whether that's Sunday mornings with Sonny Hill, weekends with Sean Bell, other personalities like that, or you may even have to go podcasting. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that there is no Black sports talk radio hosts. That's not true. You have Ike Reese, you have also Hugh Douglas, but they're also former Eagles players. So the caveat is that there are no Black talk show hosts who are non-athletes. So that's the issue. Anyone else can come on and, not play sports. I even put in my column that, the highest level he might have played sports was maybe high school or maybe even not at all. But, they're in those chairs controlling the narratives about what we think about our athletes and our superstars.
How many Philadelphians actually listen to sports radio?
Well, you have two radio stations primarily, WIP and also 97.5 The Fanatic. WIP is really the holy grail of sports talk radio. They own most of the ratings, but you have had two sports radio stations that have lasted for at least the last 20 years. So people listen.
And they listen because they can participate, right? That's part of
right.
What sports radio is, right? Yeah.
Whether it's a win or even if it's a loss, it seems like sports radio is more popular after losses, right? So they want everybody fired, or, they want, Sirianni out of here, or you want to fire Rob Thompson, or you want to trade Joel Embiid, all of those things matter, and everybody has those opinions. But if you only have one narrative out there who's, giving their opinions, giving, their thoughts, their critiques and everything, you don't have that balance. And, that should also reflect society. So I think it's very important that is represented. And, I'm not even talking about from a female standpoint. I mean, you don't even see a whole lot of women involved in sports radio. I mean, you might see some here and there, but you don't even see any Black women at all. So that's another problem in itself.
More with OJ Spivey about representation in sports radio after the break.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
OJ, is this somewhat personal for you? You have a background in sports radio, right?
Yeah, I do. I actually hosted a sports radio show, some years back now. I don't have much of a desire to do it at this point because I love writing a lot more. I guess maybe I'm too old to maybe go back and forth with callers and different things of that nature. I'd much rather go back and forth.
Philly Relentless?
Yeah, exactly. I'd much rather go back and forth with my friends and colleagues and all. Seems to be much more friendlier conversation. But I know so many people who are talented and can be paired with some of the existing personalities. And I still think that it could be great radio, right? And I think it could be more diverse opinions and all.
Now, I was a producer back in the day, and I had to answer calls from our listeners. We are just hearing voices. So,
yes.
Do you feel like the callers aren't bringing those diverse perspectives, or do you want the host to do that?
Well,
who has that responsibility in these back and forth conversations or the conversations you hear on sports radio?
Well, that's a great question. As you've experienced, callers don't want to be callers, but they tend to be more diverse than the hosts themselves. But I think it also starts at the top, Trinae, who's hiring, who's putting people in these positions. And we know in industries, people who are in management positions, executive positions, they tend to hire who they're comfortable with.
Who are they looking for, OJ? What is the job description of an on-air personality versus, I don't know, say a reporter or a professional who covers the team at the games in the locker rooms?
Well, the funny thing is it doesn't take a whole lot to become a sports talk show host. I mean, you can go on any job website that's looking for a sports talk show host, and the main thing is you must have a strong opinion. It doesn't even say anything about having a correct opinion or having a accurate opinion. You must have a strong opinion, and you must have a strong knowledge of sports. But you turn on the radio, about half the people you'll listen to don't even have a strong knowledge of sports. So it's all about opinions. So it's not like you have to be a Phi Beta Kappa to get these jobs. You're just expressing your opinion because basically, you're a glorified fan when you get on sports talk radio. You're a fan with a microphone. You're a fan with a medium. And I think also, too, this is why a lot of people, Black, white, or any other ethnic group, they're going to podcasts because they feel like their voices are going to be more heard in those mediums as opposed to sports talk radio, where it's really a narrative coming from mostly white folks. So You'll see someone like former players, former athletes, we see that as well in podcasts and all. But, I've seen a lot of people who've come up through journalism and they start to have their own podcast because they can't even get a shot at their local radio station.
Is it because the field is crowded? Like, are there just more on-air personalities that want to get into the sports arena?
Well, don't get me wrong, Trinae. As we both know, Philadelphia is a tough market. It's a tough media market. It's very competitive. I think we're now, the fifth largest media market, but, it has to start at the top.
What are some other challenges Black professionals face in this arena?
Well, it goes back to, okay, LeBron James has said this, and I think he even has like a production or theme, or maybe even had a show about this, more than an athlete. Are we seen as more than athletes? You're a former athlete, right, Trinae? So are we seen as more than that? Are we seen as more than a Jalen Hurts? Are we seen more as than a Joel Embiid? Or are we seen more as fans, more than fans? Can the job be done? Can you, it goes back to a lot of the stereotypes, thinking about, okay, can Jalen Hurts read the defense? Okay, can someone Black as a sports reporter or as even a talk show host? Okay, do we know the nuances of football, even though we might have played it, at high levels or maybe even at low levels? I'll even take it a step further with Major League Baseball. You look at it's only 6-7% Black players in Major League Baseball, but you look at it from a Latino standpoint, where I believe the percentage is in the 20s. You'll rarely come across a Latino reporter, a Latino talk show host to talk about baseball, because again, it's not reflective of what we've seen on the field. It has to become more of a point to where, let's just say you're talking to one of the Phillies pitchers like Ranger Suarez or Jose Lazaro, or maybe even the young player in Johan Rojas. A lot of these guys still have interpreters. Okay, why can't be one of the reporters be one of the interpreters? We only see that once in a while, and it's also it's a relatable thing too. One of the things I do as a reporter, like you talked about when I'm in the locker rooms, it's one thing for me to be a Black man from the Northeast. It's another thing being a Black man from the South. Most of the Eagles football players are from the South. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Carter, Jalen Hurts. These are Black guys from the South. That's a different dynamic that I also have to learn. I feel that I can relate to them a little bit, but, it matters. It also matters that someone like a Jalen Hurts belongs to the Divine Nine, one of the Black fraternities and sororities. It's important that reporters know that someone as popular as Asia Wilson belongs to Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. You have to learn those things. And if you see more faces that look like her, you're easily to relate where they from, what they represent.
How would you increase representation of Black voices in sports media?
Well, one of the things I love to do, Trinae, is participate in career days at local schools, whether it's high school, whether it's middle school, maybe even elementary in some aspects. And what I like to present to students, all across the area, and no matter, whether they're Black or white, is to get into the sports industry and look beyond being an athlete. Of course, being an athlete may get you into college and may get you that scholarship, but I also encourage them to learn the business, to cover sports, to cover that sport that you love or that you may not play forever, to also get involved in management, perhaps, sports management, entertainment. I have a good friend of mine. She was running entertainment operations at where the Sixers and the Flyers play. But those are different types of professions that you can get into in the sports realm. And it's very lucrative. I mean, I have a great relationship with people who work for the Eagles, who work for the Sixers and all. And, they never play sports, but they're very much involved. And they also control narratives of those franchises. So that's a fun thing to get into also. And, at the end of the day, sports radio should be fun, should be entertainment and everything. I guess that's where, you don't have to have, great opinions and all because, they're all up for critique. But again, I just feel, and I'm very passionate about it, that it should be a little more reflective of what the community looks like and even more so what the athletes look like.
That's OJ Spivey, CityCast Philly sports contributor, and you can find his writing in the Philadelphia Tribune as well. OJ, thank you so much for joining me on CityCast Philly today.
Thank you, Trinae.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Let us know what you think of this episode. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the Friday News Roundup. Bye.